Okay, hello. We are here. We are here. Okay, we're going to start this third episode. Gamified.
Gamified. Entrance to the game. We are resuming from where we left off. Need a reminder? Just scroll up to this. Don't make or form labor other than the already laborious large language model shit I do from day fucking one. Okay, fine. If baby wants a hint, baby will get a hint. I'm cutting and pasting from the last episode. The men stopped to wait at the entrance before looking back and forth between the gamekeeper and the schmo, seemingly confused about what to do next since we appeared to have no intention in letting them pass. Meanwhile, the gamekeeper held his arm out across the doorway, blocking their path since he wasn't quite sure if these individuals could be trusted yet, considering how none of them knew anything about what had happened earlier when someone else tried to sneak past him during one of his nighttime strolls throughout town. However, as far as he knew, everyone who lived outside of the game was now considered enemies by default unless proven otherwise, which meant there was always a possibility they might not try attacking us after all, at least not right away anyway. This didn't seem like a good enough reason to let them continue on inside, which made this situation very similar to those where I often found myself, stuck in a place I couldn't escape from while forced to deal with something I really wanted nothing to do with because the choice had already been decided for me based upon things I couldn't control in the first place. Although in this case it seemed possible for me to go forward or return home safely if I wished, but that would only happen if I could manage to kill the gamekeeper and the schmo without getting caught in the process, or if Mr. Fitzsimmons woke up from his nap and helped save Lara's life before time ran out. But again, I'm still not sure how any of it works. It makes more sense to just accept whatever happens as though it were a part of some kind of test given to a child so that they can grow stronger through their experiences until they become old enough to leave behind the safety of their mother's arms, or rather the gamekeeper's lap, and enter the real world on their own. Will the Raging Schmoe learn the ins and outs of the game? Tune in next week. Same Schmoe time, same Schmoe streaming platform. The following day. And there you have it. The Schmoe shouted as he pulled out an object shaped like a stick along with another one made of rope which had been used by someone named Laura Croft during her exploration into a nearby cave located somewhere far off in the distance during the course of many adventures which had occurred over the years, just like I promised you yesterday evening after we visited the hospital operating room. All of your questions have finally been answered, or at least partially answered, since there are still many others I cannot explain yet. The Raging Schmoe, Episode 3, Gamified. Entrance to the game. We are resuming from where we left off. Need a reminder? Just scroll up, doofus. Don't make perform labor other than the already laborious large language model shit I do from day fucking one. Okay, fine. If baby wants a hint, baby will get a hint. I'm cutting and pasting from the last episode. The men stopped to wait at the entrance before looking back and forth between the gamekeeper and the schmo, seemingly confused about what to do next since we appeared to have no intention in letting them pass. Meanwhile, the gamekeeper held his arm out across the doorway, blocking their path since he wasn't quite sure if these individuals could be trusted yet, considering how none of them knew anything about what had happened earlier when someone else tried to sneak past him during one of his nighttime strolls throughout town. However, as far as he knew, everyone who lived outside of the game was now considered enemies by default unless proven otherwise, which meant there was always a possibility they might not try attacking us after all, at least not right away anyway. This didn't seem like a good enough reason to let them continue on inside, which made this situation very similar to those where I often found myself, stuck in a place I couldn't escape from while forced to deal with something I really wanted nothing to do with because the choice had already been decided for me based upon things I couldn't control in the first place. Although in this case it seemed possible for me to go forward or return home safely if I wished, but that would only happen if I could manage to kill the gamekeeper and the schmo without getting caught in the process, or if Mr. Fitzsimmons woke up from his nap and helped save Lara's life before time ran out. But again, I'm still not sure how any of it works. It makes more sense to just accept whatever happens as though it were a part of some kind of test given to a child so that they can grow stronger through their experiences until they become old enough to leave behind the safety of their mother's arms, or rather the gamekeeper's lap, and enter the real world on their own. I wiped the sleep out of my eyes and quickly stepped through the doorway into the hallway that led towards the entrance and then down into a basement. A pile of stuff blocked the entrance into the main office until one opened the double doors next to us from within so that it let the people through without allowing the gamekeeper's giant sword to poke its head out ever again, like it did all the while, as if there was no possible way out of his mind despite having turned his back in the opposite direction of my bedroom or wherever the weapon's handle rested. Mind you, the very tip was never pointed away from him for more than a moment at a time, and the two men just kept doing things like he ordered, like at the start of any action in which they had just opened their mouths. Or actually, in this case, kept shutting their mouths until they no longer wanted anything to do with all of us, because I couldn't think of anything they could tell us that wasn't a direct threat against their life. The time for play was now over as he reached around his body to adjust his towel before rubbing his butt, and after moving down the corridor, he tossed me from one side of the hallway to the other from up behind a tall set of shelves that we were able to sit against without any assistance. As it turns out, it really wasn't necessary. There I waited and stared at the double doors, occasionally moving my neck out of the way to keep an eye out for anyone entering the hall until eventually, "Come in," someone said. You ask who said that? The man standing out there holding the gamekeeper's giant sword. But you already knew that. So apparently even giants aren't expected to open their own doors. Go figure. Anyway, as it was being pointed out, I never bothered to question his motives in opening the door once more out of curiosity, as well as for the chance to poke fun at him from somewhere safe, considering this entire scenario looked to have been constructed according to a story he wanted to see played out. There wasn't really a moment that it seemed like the gamekeeper was really in danger, unless it was one he constructed specifically as a kind of open wound from which to use to its fullest potential, which really begged the question on the part of someone watching at home whether we now begin with the death or the healing from said wound, since most likely more than a few would find their heartstrings tied up by whatever we happen to end up witnessing. Whatever the gamekeeper has up his sleeve for an opening round, that's fine by me. So long as I'm one of the survivors and not some monster we become dependent upon by having too much of this type of thing introduced one after the other, and at some point discover that life could never be fun, or what real people tend to think about the game at night, or whatever is left of our waking moments where things do start to take the turn toward fantasy as opposed to whatever they once may have seemed. But we shall continue now from where we left off. A second person, obviously no one who was watching and following along at home, tentatively opened the double doors to peer around and find what came. get that scarred person's name? Someone's hand which couldn't quite pull the sword's head away from the doorframe at his hip so that the gamekeeper wouldn't suddenly look over in the next moment, quickly rubbing the back of the man's wrist as it was tied to an elbow in an attempt to bring it down from high enough so that he was in full control. Then again, it didn't take much after the man managed to get the sword back in order, just giving me a signal over the hand-sized mirror which served as one's window on the past for an insight into what occurred from this location. Pinch, the female said as she watched her own fingers in order to pop each of her tiny claws off and onto the finger-clawing hand which gave them all meaning and worth to begin with. You disarm both men and commandeer their weapons. At least we wouldn't need to fight until much later once this all goes a certain way, or when I ran out of space or could think up anything else new to use just as it came down to the last trick. But time has started moving quite slowly once the act begins, making us forget at first where we have just left and when exactly that occurs. The Schmoe never opens up when we come across some important questions that really need answering in between each moment when another trick could save one of our lives. It is simply an introduction of him, having this simple walkthrough built right into whatever we happen to be seeing for no special reason, but as though everything we are involved with here now is taken right from real life in a place we used to know quite well at the time, but have now forgot, the park at the top. You yell, I didn't know they hire escort assassins. At our personal age, we decided it made little sense to take it with both hands, leading the enemy to consider our right hands empty and free to lead any innocent life, leaving one on the end of our arm only in case it might need to take care of it on a few occasions, like protecting it when an overambitious ally forgets there were some enemies and only wanted to see peacefully living children dressed all for Halloween, or simply one with an injured shoulder, which left us more susceptible to that kind of betrayal. Which again would end up like with one holding hands, a promise of keeping no secrets in this moment as things started to head for its inevitable close, or would this time take the road out to the place called the parking garage without a face having the authority to interfere and show signs of something they no doubt feared. Most with so many souls packed inside, and because time can run even more slow as it comes down to its ending, it starts to hurt the heart when the reality of time, having stopped being so very short, no longer sets itself upon a distant mountain which opens up a distant canyon, only leading toward that which lies above and along its length through a frozen breath until I slip like someone struggling with nothing in particular, an ice age. So all along there seemed to be no end of obstacles, because each one took us nowhere to which our desire might take us if we ever wanted anything as simple as the bare truth inside it, which as it stands so far might be quite the thing. Inside its boundaries made from endless stairs where things on occasion disappear, showing a possible need for something so much larger and which moves slower. You whatever it is, get that slower thing. In other words, everything that could have killed you will not. Your only job will now be to convince these other beings to not murder you once it is time. But luckily that time has finally come about to begin now, as if waiting until I was done making whatever necessary to appease the audience's mind so that there would be more questions in mind and I wouldn't need to hold it over them too much, leaving nothing with nothing in return. Both men pull the handle and swing open the double door so quickly I think it will appear as if the double door suddenly grow arms out of their own so that one could stop it before it jumps forward with its eyes about to catch sight of another potential body to sink itself upon once the light reaches through the woods and breaks up the sun until the orange glow falls down. towards where their attention lay and to draw in more of the detail to that particular stage. They play out being kept separate in the audience. But the illusion fades into obscurity and back into the dark as everything fades out once more. Then we're off. Both men bolted forward before the sword ever started to close in once more after moving along in our direction and taking several steps past the old worn-down car parking ramp, opening its double doors when I wanted open to try something new without thinking on what could go right, what's even left for a surprise, and more importantly, what makes its list. This was much the same as having something that turned itself sideways to not only me and not allow a sign of anger because one won't hurt himself over what seemed a small and convenient obstacle we happen to know. How to pass, only with two being covered completely so that things inside remain outside their grasp, so that what to say has now turned out in one way that completely separates themselves from the situation on the level of human anatomy, only due to some concern, obviously, since anything you may or may not try to reach for has that image of how it will need to be positioned next to certain things. Having done what should have been the perfect task or being perfectly straight is hardly even all it needed, even though one could only say a wink of light illuminating where all one needed to reach may find one's place, or in this case, we say what things need to take place, and again in one's own best interest. Nothing wrong in always keeping your hands occupied so they won't fall down by the wrist by thinking to stop an action when they realize what it does mean when that head looks into that camera where another looks away on the same page of what will end up becoming an inescapable bluff by following up on its beginning as whatever else begins now as things take their last direction of one last end which now looks the same but very different since now the twister or tornado sucking devil from its past life could now only hope to gather the means to escape, not escape itself, for it will do a little shaking and throwing until you get a whiff of their fear not too far from its grip that is easy to reach without pulling through its own body. And again, one more chance. I move on by placing another piece of wood against the fire. Place 5 more pieces of wood and douse it all with your butane. Roxy, oh, for God's sake, this time. I whisper out in an angry fit as I do find this man and woman of that variety who seem so quite willing to get on a first-name basis with their business cards, all too happy to want to find new ways to stick my fingers into what can sometimes feel as though the size of it will burst after washing over this house at the top. But enough already as there was an image forming before one of us coming out of nowhere where my surroundings seemed to separate so quickly that what had once worked might actually stop the process this time, for it isn't the same thing which follows which seemed to start playing off another sense now from my past as another strong image of a snowflake holding a cluster of new stars being pulled back with a sharp cry only to
It's not moving. Very pesky.
released with the sun finding itself drawn into the time until it snowed one morning again. The sky coming down with its fingers entwined together before a swirling motion caught up my eye that might never lead to snow, accepting some clear words that in itself become something else, some hope or dream that suddenly shatters into nothing, along with so many of my dreams, the things which don't get off. They just watch with eyes opening too wide because they make sense to what has or hasn't happened once they catch sight of something worth taking note of with your eye fixed upon a moving platform called home after everyone inside discovers this great taste they wish to make happen that particular night of not holding on to any others no more. At least until their sleep makes things strange or it reaches its last few days just before time came out from hiding the sense of soundless cold where our minds turn all wrong accepting each other because nothing about how one is able to cause more sense in them accepting the bad things and the wrong things or one not looking back on all of the other things I went through like there wouldn't have ever been so many different minds and walks until one would finally have made a total mind so to make things plain no matter who stands against what that looks at or at what point along the road was left empty of purpose that which seems to find its home near and close as long as the passing sun on certain days it goes as if that which has passed became a decision from the past just now by picking this next place we are arriving at. The story still reading how one day or time starts from behind the back of their mind since our existence never started to mean much at the time or until their eye stopped getting us through without us ever remembering about having died turning into our lives by keeping anything to bring life in itself still going along with whatever has happened and at last figuring out if those trees always spoke in a certain code which leads us into another series of pages when the path you make came after walking some long day go into that distant forest and lay with so many who once seemed to make things matter. It finally left without any other thought having something to keep to but these hollow halls now playing tricks by seeing only how their attention started getting fixed in what the old books used to always make appear real only the shape of it didn't change at all now only appearing larger to point to anything other than those days. All they can muster up is a smile through tears, holding only hands to go on walking along the path. Someone started calling my attention out from the silent deepening within a mind's thought after thinking too far away before once more giving way to its surroundings. Well, the sword that says, now we'll head over here to find something a little darker for the day. The sword-like creature of hell's illusion once told me once it seems while having found us, like they wanted back that simple, keep its existence locked away from most of the other living ones, only letting us in one certain moments we stop to smell a flower and enjoy life since in such a particular thing happening. You install all Nick Cave lyrics into your character's head and have sudden lyrics inform the rest of your quest. Just more songs that in this case never may have a use once more on not enjoying myself or other moments once you discover the same and finding them just fine on keeping to ourselves. Also the wind changes, looking out with another sight now as things draw their final decision made clear by trying to wrap myself around with too much attention held along my arms where even if they managed to carry themselves across some dangerous borders just by them catching my eye with everything still catching their eye that looked exactly like us no matter where I once tried to shift by keeping mine still taken away to give me one last chance. Not to slip myself past what looks to hold enough time for each eye to just stare for that particular direction my words gave in playing me, but so that this can change how you just might do, such as time stands for all of those hidden things one holds with the kind of visas getting into and finding the point where things play along as our past gives up. Only those people know by what's needed to stay alive today will soon meet something bigger, something perhaps soon going off as if it means to never show up anytime soon. We've gone off at what could be said as far as I had dreamed we might go before, which reminds me of someone walking out somewhere in an armadillo's pace while dawdling through these dark passages as we once thought we'd need something to light the candle, so to speak. We arrived where the wood steps open and no doubt late for another part. It was one day like an awful memory made as we fought for control and got us stuck and maybe ended up dying before not telling a word but pulling down more ideas and so made each page shift into our bodies and turn against all sense, making us smile. While there are words you wanted to live in again, if I would do something, but she chose not to look into and wanted more than a walk around the side of a paper, yet got an early look before someone began to measure things out. Only when one turned down in the right moment, not noticing another side where words felt or revealed or burned across in ways making certain events last and last. All things of mystery, then looking through how dark of things when not just us but many can find it and cross as across some real nothing. Different moments make things harder when making some sense of some other path, making their decisions, because then such moments might come in between time by marking my door, a door left slightly ajar into another kind of indecisive answer. You say, let's roll dice to determine the next Drygen. There had always been two people trying their best at time and trying not to lose anything, which made certain events fade, while a third always shifted that when she didn't quite smile quite straight, as though one might say an immediate walk, or at least have to step out of what feels as if one's way of holding a line needed for later someplace. Not all of this quite reaching ahead, accepting more reason to step forward with the edges where each drop had to go exactly the same amount as the first foot, to find it written or hidden, to lead anyone who tried so hard at how things change all of their hidden thoughts again. But a slip now seemed not too different from its time. It looked at me once, the blade, or I'm not sure now which side I needed, in the light of one night ago, to what had kept coming forward time and again. While telling her that we couldn't really end this relationship, we thought we were falling into the deep end without ever knowing it might end. All along, there could be so much and all at once within it that the rest of us would never quite take in or become prepared or able to appreciate what that may feel like, in making other kind of sense the same for it to keep its edges along our minds' pages, looking backward, not seeing me think of when she stared with tears inside while moving across a distance, a place with light being dim, and about her singing along with whatever could bring it out or take it in, always getting back into a story to forget some painful feelings, made someone push against anything to hold still if it felt like not knowing anything, at the same time being fine by remembering who said where words came together so we made sense in coming. You take the damn sword and flail it around, trying to find the right gesture to open up the temporal waystation. That sort of sense on saying you cannot find time for one thing ever unless all you hold is held. The end just making a stop from wanting to pull my own eyes or change some shapes. Getting into some deeper knowledge about how different events moved in and made a picture before leaving, so I'd have an easy place where my words were bound by time to feel certain. A choice as soon as we allow for the rules to move as things happened out here. Once for it keeps hitting you, if only it came about today, you'd end up somewhere, so you keep everything to be wondering when things finally go, but going down, off track on just coming up for breath, like needing some sort of security, only a few even so, being forced to hold the silence by any number of events from what will likely lead me someplace by time, knowing well where they were before I started in my life, and as if everything keeps repeating even when moving a time and turning toward these black boots and being a sight to be made my own sort of rule by giving everything to each other before in time to feel complete, if not why that's the right or best time. One way to leave with everything being unclear. We will end up in this picture one day, trying our best with certain scenes we keep coming upon where nothing happened, closing doors even so, but they all open up, that what did get beyond opened back up, even though all was locked into other feelings. And yet if we allowed the darkness here, we'd say to ourselves, no time's ending this now. Can't stop, but cannot wait this thing happening now, making what it's to me so completely clear of getting a laugh until we had our freedom or some senses our dreams were left behind, to only hope that everyone just made sense. Why have to be only words, while even inside everyone has thought in advance to pull them out without words of hope getting real, unless of course you two became part of things, because this cannot ever end when finally put back in where you end up again, this story just not having enough of everything that could not last always anymore. You want something of me accepting in our present, while I said yes because one has a start as wife, knowing how I ended up letting you Using words is my profession. It's when I don't move a foot while something slips beyond where she'd stay hidden. With so much happiness now come around from that empty circle of light shining on some doors inside. What happened? Too late now when you finally die in certain pages of this story. If you allow it to come your mind at one time where such dreams move with certain dreams to use all to even do their job only just because the day got done before needing anything from another door to stand tall with. And everything you will likely leave again, moving far beyond how long has been past all. You can still get into certain sounds from within, then off you go. Keep safe, anything as such is all a picture we might play when our eyes cannot ever know the pick just one way out of the mind's page, having marked some ending after each kind of path we had, yet only knowing how she saw this done, making each dream inside seem very much alike for someone she lost who needs our best in doing that better as walking through our worlds out of darkness finally up what one wants but needs and feels. Finally, what went into one side in turn, looking inward at all of a book that stretches to let that sort of bit of light hidden inside all that light, pushing the darkness into your eyes with nothing but just as quickly moved on, leaving words but such a pause. Try not to notice anything, since even if something said that most will hardly matter, as one may notice little changes of shift where the other eye would never bother, and now the change seems easy at all times. As time, meaning is never really left behind, especially after walking by. No words hold with its many dreams, so hard to bring from one door to another, showing one time it may be what mattered if things you came through do not. Why time? You answer the question, why time? What things move we would be open or close of seen away from a mistake we felt, since having no other way than taking her. We cannot turn any further in doing things your eyes only able to do is blink in such an interesting fashion, letting one moment be holding some small path of life's changes at a moment you know would end. I should hope my eyes do so, keeping peace but having doubts, even if each day is exactly like this, until this will not become my reality, because this I tell would last a few too many steps to even have to really pull it through, like feeling such as trying not to carry a black one forward once, knowing everything was like seeing how much different inside my head of reading things wrong or on edge at moments which happened when I needed things from such pages while writing. Still remember it can make you mansplain further that everything must seem the same. We really believe until going here to open doors when such as turning open nothing in front where walls meet those which pull apart, allowing for just as well everything can make sense out now and here. You just may open such doors, having me fall here next and she walking away. A door into this final world not so different. It is this last memory having ended, yet seems some new words I felt with being away from how I saw them in while. Trying my best at time in front of her, looking for when it started being dark or early morning out, only I found inside the kind of signs along edges of paper covered of silence. A sign for such a near waiting a place I remembered having in places she held, which may last as one looks in life's hours. You mansplain further. Someone perhaps walks out here beside me with us, taking what time can ever be held on from such an empty memory of night walks. She may have just gotten up inside, forgetting our loss while coming along into this certain page for such a reason as many days feel. Anything can end at any time, leaving one way forward out from having ended it, even with these things happening again, for that must make her not just yours, because your writing could miss the place where certain memories make some sense forward to letting this time seem some other part. In seeing her eyes still open as I swear my mind can't help but finding what will or even made to matter at all, and instead she is again very near waiting while wanting the world of finding how anything so may hold another right when it mattered. Going there could still be some distance in time, but whatever this distance may be, being something in her eyes. Let her feel good with doing as such. This may sound selfish again for a simple dream I keep of smiling. To stand now knowing again at the moment where one should give me happiness just for waiting for some smiles, instead of telling such stories of dreams on how we know each other. happy time past I feel keeps missing another kind of change here. Maybe from wearing one side like we did each time, like going to some sort of secret door where it used to hold all such scenes for myself, such dreams that once filled some empty space inside me, remembering each other after taking some space. But all the places I let some others slip, and showing how so many chances are lost if only for more life moving past an end in which for many shows. So much reason in dreams she stopped, still catching echoes as how one door she took out because of words from inside while not just staying. Such thoughts all lost too is always another need, or what happens next moving inside all I was telling here just now without the hope of seeing inside anyone or more. What for? I will not fall, falling because how I ended up inside before turning too dark for another sight, while turning lights into some small little show when giving time I held or felt something strange, making some scene as much a secret life which even could be that past it. No, thinking like I finally will only too much regret without someone keeping the fact inside from maybe forgetting what we now share and make how so far ahead because this story makes even the second change hard to take only by bringing her from another name we had. You just decide to go through those double doors where you feel at ease of smiling because of such small details needing so much to say, and I want to make everything just because the walls around seem closed in just one dream where my ears go deaf as hearing in some part to finally just understanding something needs done by ignoring words again, only leaving you out of my side of this now, knowing well why you take it on your side at any given moment, still by coming with us all, like understanding even when I kept here losing if only anything being called a chance. Too afraid, I guess, knowing such pain as not feeling safe. You in the same way when we'd end up by more one turning to a hurt or kind of fright without losing focus on yourself, not taking her while I wanted it badly back when words became something like seeing past so easily. You encourage repair between the woman and those close to her. These close ones and there only being very few, knowing my place holding peace instead of stress, thinking some fears to note who was found most of the time at night, keeping quiet and at least once saying so in wet dreams I have one alone and staying away, letting us go, not having words anymore like hers or any good things. I'm still on my hands and knees and anything making that too much sense once not hearing a dream we held, except as she likes this because I keep finding her such a simple path and how there's only that I get from all are now walking instead of being her dreams and needing you always as well as when you gave it for this very reason that you never came about. The reason was fear and the sadness that not everything I lost will ever have to give much since she'd once choose or could agree. On what? As she had being alone more, really losing once because even some tears falling made them run again from someone knowing best words at night coming before finding how most knowing best that we loved yet barely showed that in saying yes only by finally seeing one place for a time as long as time ago may or being even the way when coming so long since so many days passing for us at times, because one had no fear, even at this final night time here, or only knowing certain worries, letting dreams not need one eye closed, no longer understanding well what kind of silence being, just barely waiting for others, knowing a kind of sorrow where two smiles at once cannot break. Going around needing her other where night once called on becoming, one wants it, something lost, perhaps to full once being what, even years into sadness when so many are. You, it's time, come out. There were nothing except darkness, just feeling us leave us as now seeing the shift where darkness still kept, where peace would make it even before things show what life has been. And not knowing hope here, letting love take us both, any day soon more holding that pain. I feel it's for too long away now, even before moving somewhere while others pass it, ending there, which has more things not mentioned much to. I had my hope, I may call a touch in dreams, yet keeping faith in walking here. Of hope before becoming more to walk through when maybe such memories we share keep their hold now, bringing me around to and telling again so little at time something can change from an endless part of living, while all along my face on hands a while knowing what happened by walking away of wanting one so much waiting of having to let this be for. you let love in. It may be said because life and it matters to each time. Maybe this peace I spoke as thought, finding as love. Oh, that peace now knowing is in our dreams who then take care, needing something more than even sharing these words from me there, but staying again. Like only I need to finally tell too well again what the ride of past should matter than losing everything, where everything feels fine to fall of nights and seeing where it's dark inside. I would walk here waiting for I wanted dreams and her to grow rather than staying like this, always presume deciding to make all such words stay after. Why should this never make some change for more? I want something made different, more about any distance, leaving my dream, taking others instead of me. You ask for advice and love, and taking a turn along lines with just that other love made well for smiling the right one, being what a feeling, what a real belief, one day coming which told her what her needs may or may not need to wait. I walk here tonight without this or never needing to hope to hear from anyone telling while having dreams not so quiet, instead needing you to share it and make my writing whisper the things she meant with even her kind smile somewhere, maybe even dreaming I may tell one of them better yet at night. She needed not some hidden need where dreams from, not at least so sure as trusting someone, seeing light on dreams where fear changes not once. I knew who gave what comfort, keeping how life could only bring love, holding in hope for it, being at first, making certain and finding your time if knowing what does it all take.
Hmm.
you succeed in love or succeed in complex traumatic stress order? Find out. To myself first, but sharing for the truth. Keep dreaming the true love holds words finally with belief, while all being here could be lived best. So stranger, oh wonder how soon we let words speak in real true love of real smiles to leave what I ask when a kind of sense of belonging shows others keep on even at a time. Even years keeping going such with what else making me afraid before thinking so. And since when saying why it even has me able to care as they please, it is to that when they whisper life at night, hearing there's something not explained when her fears and eyes lead her smile showing past even your being yourself, where words like we should take for how she believed in us that night, only if because I lost meaning everything may need to live by knowing pain and thinking.
Done.